I'm going to tell you a secret. The man who invented coffee capsules, an engineer named John Silban, confessed in an interview with The Atlantic something that should chill your blood more than a badly made iced coffee. Sometimes he feels bad for having invented them. And not only that, he admitted that he doesn't use them himself. He doesn't have one of his machines at home. Think about that for a second. It's as if Steve Jobs secretly used an Android, or if the Wright brothers had preferred to take the bus. The creator of one of the greatest consumer revolutions of the 21st century disowns his own creation. This isn't just the story of mediocre coffee. It's the story of a pact with the devil of convenience. A marketing trick as brilliant as it is perverse that has millions of us trapped in a cycle of spending, waste, and questionable quality caffeine. And most likely, you've fallen for it, I've fallen for it, we've all fallen for it without even realizing. So today we're going to uncover the truth about coffee capsules. And I promise you that after this, you'll never look at that small colorful capsule the same way again. How is it possible that something its own creator regrets has become an empire? To understand the success of capsules, we have to travel back to a not-so-distant time, the office of the 1990s. Office coffee was, and often still is, an abomination. A brown, bitter, burnt liquid that had been sitting in a glass pot for hours, with the power to ruin your morning. The alternative was instant coffee, which tastes as if someone had described the flavor of coffee to a chemist over the phone. People longed for a solution. A decent cup of coffee. Quick, hassle-free, and above all, personalized. This is where Keurig comes in, the company Silban co-founded. The name, ironically, comes from the Danish word for excellence. It's like calling your cat a champion when it spends all day sleeping and licking itself. The promise was simple and powerful. A perfect cup of coffee just for you in under a minute, with just the push of a button. No more burnt pots, no more arguments about whether the coffee is too strong or too weak. It was the democratization of quality coffee, or at least that's what they sold us. This promise appealed directly to our modern selfishness and our culture of instant gratification. In a world where we personalize our playlists, our avatars, and even our phone cases, why wouldn't we personalize our morning dose of caffeine? The capsule became a small, affordable luxury, a daily treat that told you, you deserve it. But this brilliant solution to an everyday problem was hiding a much older and more cunning business model. Was the excellence in the coffee or in the financial trap they were building? John Silban was not a coffee connoisseur. He was an engineer who simply wanted to solve a problem. In 1992, he quit his job and, together with his partner Peter Dragon, started tinkering with prototypes in his kitchen. The idea was to create a single-serve system that was clean and consistent. After years of development and almost going bankrupt, they finally created the K-Cup and the Keurig machine. The irony is that their invention was such a massive success that it got out of their hands. In 1997, they sold the company. Keurig became a corporate giant. But Silban, seeing the mountains of non-biodegradable plastic his creation was generating, began to feel the weight of remorse. By 2015, his K-Cups were so numerous that, if lined up, they could circle the globe more than 10 times. A rather uncomfortable legacy for someone who just wanted a good cup of coffee. The real genius of the system, however, wasn't in the technology for making coffee. It was in the business model they adopted, one that turns an initially cheap product into a perpetual and disproportionate source of income. The coffee maker wasn't the product. The real product was the pods, and once you had the machine on your countertop, you were already trapped. Oh no. This is where one of the oldest and most effective business strategies in the book comes into play. The razor and blade model, popularized by King C. Gillette. At the beginning of the 20th century, the concept is devilishly simple. Sell the main product, the razor, at a very low price, sometimes even at a loss, and then make huge profits by selling the consumables needed for it to work. The replacement blades. Keurig, and later Nespresso and other brands, applied this model perfectly. The coffee machine is the razor. The capsules are the blades. You invest a reasonable amount, say $80 or $100, in a stylish coffee maker that decorates your kitchen. Psychologically, you've already made the main investment. Now every time you need coffee, your brain doesn't think about going out to buy coffee beans from any brand. It thinks, I need to buy more capsules for my Keurig. They've locked you into their ecosystem. This model is based on a high customer acquisition cost, since the company loses money on the initial sale of the machine. But they more than make up for it with the customer's lifetime value, which is all the money they'll get from you over the years with those capsules that have an obscene profit margin. It's estimated that capsule coffee can cost between $50 and $80 per pound, while high-quality whole bean coffee rarely exceeds $20 per pound. You're paying a 300% markup for convenience. It's the equivalent of your car only being able to run on one specific brand of gasoline. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's more common than you think. This trap isn't exclusive to coffee. The printer industry has been doing exactly the same thing for decades. You buy an HP or Epson printer for $60 in a deal that seems incredible. You feel like the king of bargaining. But when the ink runs out, you discover in horror that a full set of official cartridges costs $70, more than the printer itself. It's absurd. It's like in Rick and Morty, if Rick's portal was free, but the green fluid cost 1,000,000 flurbos per trip. These companies also make sure you can't use cheaper alternatives. They install microchips in their cartridges that communicate with the printer. If the chip isn't official, the printer refuses to work, showing a cryptic error message. It's not that it can't use that ink, it's that it's programmed not to. The video game industry does this too. Sony and Microsoft often sell their PlayStation and Xbox consoles at a loss or with a minimal margin. So where's the business? In selling games from which they take royalties, subscriptions to PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass, and microtransactions within the games. The console is the gateway to their walled garden of recurring expenses. Keurig, seeing that its original patent on K-Cups was going to expire in 2012, panicked. If anyone could make pods for their machines, their lucrative razor blade monopoly would collapse. So what did they do? They copied directly from the printer manual's playbook. How could a simple coffee maker become so controlling? Before we look at Keurig's masterstroke, let's grasp the scale of the beast. The global coffee pod market surpassed $25 billion in 2020. That's an astronomical figure built on tiny plastic and aluminum cups. This has made companies like Keurig, Dr. Pepper, and Nestlé, the owner of Nespresso, incredibly rich. But it has come at a tremendous social and environmental cost. The main problem is the waste. Most pods are a mix of plastic, aluminum, and organic coffee grounds, which makes them very difficult to recycle. Even though some brands now boast that their pods are recyclable, the reality is that they require the consumer to take them apart, separate the aluminum lid, empty out the coffee grounds, and rinse the plastic cup. Let's be honest, the person who buys a pod to save 2 minutes in the morning is not going to perform microsurgery on every used capsule. It's a form of greenwashing, shifting the responsibility to the consumer, knowing that almost no one will actually do it. The result is that billions of these capsules end up in landfills every year, where they will take up to 500 years to decompose. We're trading a few minutes of convenience for centuries of waste. And all of this just to get a coffee that, according to many experts, is inferior because ground coffee loses its freshness and aroma very quickly once exposed to air, even inside a sealed capsule. We pay more for a worse product that also harms the planet. But Keurig was more concerned with protecting its profit margins than the environment. And their solution was as clever as it was anti-competitive. When Keurig's patent expired in 2012, the market was flooded with much cheaper competitor capsules. The goose that laid the golden eggs was in danger. The company's response was the launch of the Keurig 2.0. This new machine came with a technological innovation, an infrared scanner. This scanner read a special ink printed on the rim of official Keurig pod lids. If it detected the correct ink, the machine would work. If it didn't detect it, in other words, if you used a competitor's pod or a reusable one, a message would appear on the screen saying, "Oops, this pack wasn't designed for this brewer." It was essentially a digital rights management system for coffee. They wanted to force you to buy their products, completely eliminating the competition. Consumers feeling cheated quickly found ways to bypass the system. Hacks started popping up all over the internet. The most famous one was incredibly simple. Cut out the lid from an official pod and stick it onto the unofficial pod you wanted to use. Others, with a bit more ingenuity, developed a small plastic clip that could be attached to the scanner to trick it permanently. Soon competing companies simply cracked the special ink and started using it in their own pods. The coffee drinkers' rebellion had begun. But was what Keurig was doing actually legal? Keurig's strategy was a clear attempt to monopolize the market for consumables for their machines, a practice that borders on anti-competitive. And sure enough, legal trouble soon followed. They faced multiple class action lawsuits accusing them of monopolistic practices and of harming consumers and competition by blocking third-party pods with their DRM system. Finally, in 2020, Keurig Green Mountain agreed to pay $31 million to settle one of these lawsuits. Although the company did not admit to any wrongdoing, the typical phrase in legal settlements, the amount speaks for itself. It was a blow, but for a company of their size, it's little more than a parking ticket. The damage to consumer trust, however, was much deeper. The problem is that these tactics operate in a gray area. There is no specific law that prohibits a company from designing its product to work only with its own accessories. They hide behind innovation and protecting the customer experience, when in reality, it's about safeguarding their revenue streams. It's a legal loophole that corporations exploit time and again, because they know that, despite everything, people will keep buying. Why are we so vulnerable to this trap? The deception doesn't end with the business model. It's present in every aspect of product design and user experience. Nespresso machines, for example, are minimalist works of art, sleek, metallic, with a design that screams European luxury. Nespresso stores look like jewelry shops, with walls of perfectly arranged colorful capsules as if they were precious gems. They have George Clooney as their ambassador, a guy who embodies sophistication and good taste. This whole show is designed to mask the reality. You're paying a fortune for a small amount of coffee in a wasteful package. The shopping experience, the unboxing of the product, the satisfying sound of the machine piercing the capsule. Everything is choreographed to make you feel good about your decision, so you don't think about the real cost or the environmental impact. It's like the first rule of Fight Club. You don't talk about the per-pound cost of the coffee in your capsule. They're selling a lifestyle, an illusion of sophistication and efficiency. We go back to the beginning, to John Silban, the regretful creator. His story is a warning. He created something to solve a small problem and, unintentionally, unleashed a monster of consumerism and waste. The coffee capsule is the perfect symbol of our era. A product that promises to make our lives easier, but charges us a very high hidden price, both for our wallets and for the planet. They sold us excellence in a small plastic cup, but what we really bought was a closed system designed to slowly squeeze us dry. They sold us convenience but took away our freedom of choice. The next time you see that wall of colorful capsules at the supermarket, remember that you're not looking at coffee. You're looking at the result of one of the most successful marketing tricks in history. And now I ask you, have you ever felt trapped by a business model like this, whether it's with coffee, printers, or any other product? And what's your foolproof method for making a good cup of coffee in the morning? And while you think about it, if you're fascinated by these stories of corporate giants, you need to know the harsh truth about Subway that's causing a huge upheaval.